6 months pregnant and starving, she watched them drag a man past her, his fingernails missing, his eyes begging. He whispered one word before they took him. Run. But she couldn't even stand. In the dark, the first thing she smelled was blood. Old blood, soaked into the concrete, sticky under her bare feet. Chains bit into her swollen ankles, metal cutting deep into soft, pregnant skin. Every time she tried to move, the iron rattled and the sound echoed like a threat through the empty warehouse. She was 6 months pregnant. Her belly was round, heavy, tight. Her baby kicked like it was begging to get out, away from this place. But there was nowhere to go. Her wrists were shredded from the cuffs. Her throat was dry from screaming days ago, when they first brought her in. No one answered. No one ever answered. The only sound was the screaming from the next room. Men. Different voices. Some she knew, some she did not. All of them begging. All of them breaking. He was doing this for her. He tortured every man who had ever touched her life. Every man who might know where she was, or where she had run, before his men finally dragged her here. Now she waited in the dark, shaking, listening to bones crack and flesh burn, praying he never opened her door, and knowing he would. Hi, my beautiful family. Thank you so much for sticking around and showing me so much love and support. You have no idea how much it means to me. Listen, if you're already hooked on today's story and you can't wait to hear what happens, and I know you can't wait because this one is wild, then do these two things right now. Like and subscribe, so you catch tomorrow's equally amazing story. Let's continue. The concrete was cold. Not just cold. Frozen, like it had been waiting in the dark for years, soaking up every drop of blood that had ever touched it. Seraphine's bare feet pressed into the grime, and she could feel the stickiness between her toes. Old blood, dried, layered. She tried not to think about how many people had bled here before her. Her ankles throbbed. The chains were too tight, biting into swollen skin that had no room left to swell. 6 months pregnant, and her body was already screaming. Her belly was so heavy she couldn't sit up straight. Every breath was work. Every heartbeat was a reminder that she wasn't just keeping herself alive anymore. The baby kicked, hard, like it knew, like it could feel the danger pressed against her ribs. She tried to shift her weight, but the chains rattled loud, echoing through the empty warehouse. The sound made her freeze. If they heard her move, they'd come back. And she wasn't ready for them to come back. The room smelled like rust and rot. The walls were cracked, stained with things she didn't want to name. A single bulb flickered overhead, casting shadows that moved like ghosts. She couldn't tell if it was day or night. Time didn't exist here. Only pain. Only waiting. Then she heard it. A scream. It came from somewhere beyond the wall. A man's voice. Deep. Broken. The kind of scream that didn't stop until the body gave up. She flinched, pulling her knees toward her belly, trying to protect the only thing that mattered. The scream cut off. Silence. Then it started again. Her chest tightened. She didn't know him. She didn't know any of them, but she knew why they were screaming. Because of her. The voice cracked, words spilling out between sobs. I don't know, I swear, I don't. Then she heard her name. Seraphine, please. Seraphine Cade. Her blood went cold. He knew her name. He was screaming her name. They were torturing him because of her. She pressed her hands against her ears, but it didn't help. The sound crawled under her skin, wrapped around her bones. She wanted to scream back, to tell them to stop, to beg them to let him go, but her throat was too dry. She had screamed days ago when they first dragged her in here. No one had answered. No one ever answered. Footsteps, heavy, slow, moving past her door. She held her breath. A voice low and calm cut through the chaos. Bring in the next one. She didn't see him, but she knew that voice. Domenico. Her hands started shaking. She pressed them flat against the cold floor, trying to steady herself, but the baby kicked again, harder this time, and the pain shot through her ribs like a warning. The man's screaming stopped, She heard dragging, the wet sound of something heavy being pulled across concrete. Then a door slammed, and the warehouse went silent again. She stared at the wall, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. How many? How many men had he already broken? How many had died because they crossed her path, because they saw her face, because they existed in the same city as her? She didn't know. But she knew one thing. He wasn't going to stop. Not until he found her. And when he did, the screaming would be hers. 3 weeks ago, Seraphine had been invisible. Just another face in the crowd, walking the streets of New York with her head down, her jacket pulled tight over her growing belly. She changed her hair. She changed her name at coffee shops. She paid cash. She never stayed in one place long enough to leave a memory. But he had found her anyway. Now, in the present, she heard the door open again. The guards dragged someone in, and she heard the wet thud of a body hitting the floor in the next room. The man groaned. She heard chains, the scrape of metal on concrete. Then the voice started begging. Please, no, I didn't do anything. Her stomach twisted. She knew that voice. Marcus, the cab driver who had taken her uptown twice last month. He had asked if she was okay. She had lied and said yes. And now he was here bleeding because he remembered her face. Where is she? Domenico's voice was calm. Too calm. Like he was asking about the weather. I don't know what you're talking about. Seraphine Cade. You drove her. Twice. Where did she go? I swear, I don't remember. The sound of something sharp meeting flesh. Marcus screamed. Seraphine closed her eyes, but she couldn't block it out. She pressed her palms against her belly, whispering to the baby inside her. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The torture continued. She heard every word, every cry, every wet crack of bone. And through it all, Domenico's voice stayed steady, patient, like he had all the time in the world. You're protecting her. That's noble. But she's not worth it. I don't know her, Marcus sobbed. Then why are you bleeding for her? Seraphine's mind dragged her back. She remembered the first time she met Domenico, 5 years ago, a rooftop party in Manhattan. He had smiled at her across the room, and she had smiled back, not knowing who he was, not knowing what he wanted. They had talked for hours. He was charming, dangerous. She knew it even then, but she didn't care. She was running from something else, and he felt like safety, until he wasn't. Until she realized the man holding her hand owned half the city's blood. Until she found the files, the money, the bodies buried under his empire. Until she stole from him and ran. And now, 5 years later, pregnant with a secret she would take to her grave, he was tearing the city apart to find her. Marcus stopped screaming. She heard dragging again. Then silence. Footsteps. Closer this time. The door to her room creaked open. She didn't look up. She couldn't. Her body was frozen, her breath caught somewhere between her lungs and her throat. A guard stepped in, young, maybe mid-20s, with eyes that didn't match the gun in his hand. He stared at her for a long moment, then looked away. He's asking for you, the guard said quietly. Her heart stopped. No. He wants to see you, face to face. No. Her voice cracked. Please. The guard hesitated. For a second, she thought he might let her stay, but then he turned and walked out, locking the door behind him. She was alone again, but not for long. Domenico was coming, and when he did, he would see the truth she had been hiding for 6 months. The baby kicked. She wrapped her arms around her belly and whispered, Not yet. Please, not yet. Seraphine counted the seconds between footsteps. 37, 38, 39. The guards patrolled in patterns. She had been watching, listening, memorizing. If she could time it right, if she could find just one moment when they weren't watching. The chain rattled as she tested it again. The metal pipe it was locked to was old, rusted at the base. She pressed her foot against it, pushing with what little strength she had left. It didn't budge, but it creaked, just barely. Her wrists were already shredded. Blood dried in lines down her forearms. Every movement tore the skin a little more. But she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. The baby kicked again, and she paused, breathing through the pain. "I know," she whispered. "I know you want out. Me too." Her mind dragged her back again. To the night she found the files. Domenico's penthouse. He had been in the shower. She had been looking for her phone. Instead, she found a safe. And inside the safe, documents, wire transfers, photos of men she recognized from the news, missing, dead, all connected to him. And then she found the ledger. Her name was in it. Not as a lover, as a liability. She had two choices: stay and become another name in that book, or run and hope he never found her. She ran. But she took something with her. A USB drive. Insurance. Proof. Enough to bury him if she ever needed to. That was 5 years ago. She thought she was safe. She thought he had moved on. She was wrong. A door slammed somewhere in the warehouse, pulling her back to the present. She froze. More footsteps. Faster this time. Urgent. Then she heard it. A screen flickering on. She looked up. A small monitor hung in the corner of the room, half hidden by shadow. It blinked to life, grainy and dark. At first, she couldn't make out what she was seeing. Then the image focused. A man, tied to a chair, blood dripping from his face. His head hung forward, barely conscious. And standing behind him, calm and still, was Domenico. He looked directly into the camera. Directly at her. "Hello, Seraphine." Her breath stopped. He smiled. Not cruel, almost sad. "I know you're watching." The man in the chair groaned. Domenico rested a hand on his shoulder, almost gently. "This man," Domenico continued, "drove you to a clinic 3 months ago. Prenatal appointment. He didn't ask questions. He minded his business, but he remembered your face." Seraphine's chest tightened. She remembered the driver, older man, kind eyes. He had helped her carry groceries to the door. "I don't want to hurt him," Domenico said, "but I will, unless you tell me what I need to know." The driver's head lifted. His eyes found the camera, pleading. "Please," he whispered. "I have kids." Domenico's hand moved. A blade appeared, pressed against the man's throat. Not cutting, just resting there. "Where are you, Seraphine?" Domenico's voice was soft, tender. "I'm not angry. I just want to talk." Liar. Her hands curled into fists. She wanted to scream. She wanted to tell him to stop, to let the man go, to take her instead. But her voice wouldn't come. The baby kicked, hard, painful. Domenico's eyes shifted, like he could see through the screen, through the walls, straight into her. "I know about the baby," he said quietly. Her world stopped. "I know you're pregnant. I know you've been hiding. And I know—" He paused, his jaw tightening. "I know it's mine. No, 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 no. You can't run from this, Seraphine. You can't run from me." The screen went black. The warehouse was silent. But inside her head, everything was screaming. The guilt was eating her alive. Seraphine sat in the dark, her back pressed against the cold wall, her hands trembling over her belly. She could still see the driver's face in her mind. The way his eyes had begged. The way Domenico's blade had rested so gently against his throat, like a promise waiting to be kept. How many more? How many more men would bleed because she had been too afraid to face him? The baby kicked, and she flinched. Her body ached everywhere. Her ankles were swollen so badly the chains had disappeared into her skin. Her wrists were raw. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, maybe 3. Time was blurring together. She heard voices outside her door. Guards, talking low. How many does that make? 12. 13 if you count the one last night. Jesus, he's not going to stop, is he? Not until he gets what he wants. 12 men. 12 men tortured. Maybe dead. Because of her. Her chest tightened. She wanted to scream. She wanted to pound on the door and tell them to bring her to him, to end this nightmare, to stop punishing innocent people for her mistakes. But then the baby kicked again. Harder this time. Frantic. And she remembered. This wasn't just about her anymore. The door opened. She didn't look up. She couldn't. She heard the guards drag someone in. Another body. Another man whose only crime was existing in her orbit. Please. The man's voice was weak, broken. I don't know anything. I just sold her fruit. Once. At the market. Seraphine's heart cracked. She remembered him. The vendor on the corner. He had given her an extra apple, told her she looked tired, told her to take care of herself. Now he was going to die for that kindness. The torture started. She heard the tools, the sounds, the screams. She pressed her hands over her ears, curling into herself, but it didn't help. Nothing helped. Where did she go after she bought from you? I don't know, I swear. You talked to her. What did she say? Nothing. She just smiled and left. Please. The wet sound of impact. Bone breaking. Screaming. Seraphine's stomach churned. She tasted bile in the back of her throat. The baby twisted inside her, like it could feel her panic, her guilt, her shame. She couldn't take it anymore. Stop! Her voice ripped out of her, raw and desperate. Stop! Please! The sound stopped. Silence. Footsteps approached her door, slow, deliberate. The door opened, and there he was. Domenico Varro stood in the doorway, backlit by the flickering hallway light. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark suit that somehow still looked clean despite the blood on his hands. His face was calm, almost gentle, but his eyes were cold, empty. He looked at her for a long moment, then his gaze dropped to her belly. Something flickered across his face. Pain, anger, longing. Seraphine, he said softly. She couldn't breathe. He stepped into the room and the guard closed the door behind him. They were alone. He crouched down in front of her, slow, careful, like he was approaching a wounded animal. His hand reached out. She flinched, but he didn't stop. His fingers brushed her belly. Gentle. Possessive. It's mine, he said. Not a question. A fact. She couldn't answer. Couldn't lie. Couldn't tell him the truth. I've been looking for you for 5 years, he continued, his voice low. 5 years, Seraphine. You disappeared. You stole from me. You made me look weak. His hand pressed harder against her belly. The baby kicked, and his eyes widened. For a moment, he looked almost human. But this, he whispered, this changes everything. She found her voice. Barely. Let them go, please. They don't know anything. I know. His eyes lifted to hers. But I needed you to hear them. I needed you to understand what happens when you run from me. I'll do whatever you want. Just stop, please. He studied her face, his thumb tracing a line over her belly. I don't want you to do anything, he said quietly. I just want you to stay. Stay? Here, with me, where you belong. Her blood ran cold. The baby is mine, he said. You are mine. You always were. No. His hand moved to her chin, tilting her face up. His grip was firm but not painful. You don't get to run anymore, Seraphine. Not from this.
Not from me.
The baby kicked again, and his eyes softened.
I'm not going to hurt you,
He said.
or the baby. But you need to understand. If you try to leave again, if you lie to me again, I will burn this entire city down until there's nothing left.
He stood, his hand lingering on her belly for one more second. Then he turned and walked to the door. He paused, looked back.
The men stop bleeding the moment you stop fighting me.
The door closed, and Seraphine realized the nightmare wasn't ending. It was just beginning. Seraphine didn't sleep. She couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Domenico's hand on her belly. She heard his voice, soft, calm, terrifying.
The baby is mine.
But it wasn't. It couldn't be. She pressed her hands against her stomach, feeling the baby move beneath her skin. 6 months, 24 weeks. She had counted every single day since she found out. And she had spent every single one of those days running. Because the baby wasn't Domenico's. It was worse. The door opened. She looked up, expecting guards. But it was him again. Domenico stepped inside, carrying a tray. Food, water, a blanket. He set it down beside her, then crouched in front of her again, his eyes scanning her face.
You look terrible,
he said quietly. She didn't answer. He reached for the water bottle, opened it, and held it to her lips. Drink. She turned her head away.
Seraphine.
His voice was firmer now.
You're 6 months pregnant. You're dehydrated. Drink.
She didn't move. His jaw tightened. Then, slowly, he set the bottle down and sat back on his heels.
You're going to fight me every step of the way, aren't you?
You're torturing innocent people. They're not innocent. They helped you hide from me. They didn't know who I was.
They knew enough.
His eyes darkened.
And you knew what would happen if you ran. You knew what I would do.
I didn't think you'd care.
Care?
His voice rose just slightly before he caught himself. He took a breath.
You disappeared. With my child. You think I wouldn't care?
It's not. She stopped herself. Too late. His eyes narrowed. Not what? Her heart pounded. She couldn't tell him. If she told him, it would be worse. So much worse. It's not yours, she whispered. The words hung in the air like a blade. Domenico went very still. His face didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Something cold and sharp.
What did you say?
The baby. It's not yours. For a long moment, he didn't move. Didn't speak. Then slowly he leaned forward, his hand gripping her chin, forcing her to look at him.
Don't lie to me.
I'm not.
Don't lie to me.
His grip tightened, not painful, but firm. Final.
I know when you're lying, Seraphine. I always have.
Tears burned in her eyes. She wanted to tell him the truth. She wanted to scream it at him, but she couldn't. Because the truth would destroy everything.
Whose is it?
He asked, his voice dangerously calm. She didn't answer.
Seraphine.
His hand moved to her belly again, pressing flat against the curve.
Whose is it?
The baby kicked, hard, right into his palm. His expression cracked, just for a second. Pain, confusion, anger. It doesn't matter, she whispered. He's gone. He's dead. There's no one left. Then why run? Because you would have killed me, too. His hand stilled. I would never. You would have. You kill everyone who betrays you. That's what you do. You're different. Why? Because you loved me? She laughed, bitter and broken. You don't love anyone, Domenico. You own people. There's a difference. His jaw clenched. For a moment she thought he might hit her. Scream. Walk out. Instead, he pulled her close. Not rough, not cruel, just close. His arms wrapped around her, careful of her belly, and he pressed his forehead against hers.
I loved you, he whispered. I still do, and I don't care whose baby it is.
Her breath caught.
I don't care,
he said again, his voice shaking.
It's yours, that's enough.
She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But then he pulled back, and his eyes were hard again.
But you're not leaving. Not now. Not ever.
He stood, his hand trailing over her belly one last time.
You'll give birth here. The baby will be raised here. And you will stay by my side. Do you understand?
She stared at him, numb.
Do you understand?
He repeated, his voice sharper. She nodded. Barely.
Good.
He turned toward the door, then paused.
The guard outside, the young one, he's been watching you.
Her stomach dropped. If he touches you, if he tries to help you, I'll kill him.
Slowly. In front of you.
He looked back, his eyes cold.
And then I'll find his family. His mother. His little sister. And I'll make you watch that too.
The door closed, and Seraphine realized she wasn't just a prisoner. She was a weapon he would use to destroy anyone who cared. The guard's name was Ezio. Seraphine learned that 3 days after Domenico's visit. The young guard had slipped her an extra bottle of water, and when she whispered, "Thank you," he had hesitated, then whispered back, "Ezio." Now every time he passed her door, she watched him. And he watched her back. He was 24, too young to be working for a man like Domenico. But that's how it always worked, wasn't it? The desperate ones. The ones with no other choice. The ones who needed money more than they needed a clean conscience. She could see the doubt in his eyes, the way he looked away when the screaming started, the way his hands shook when he locked her chains. He didn't want to be here, neither did she. So she started talking to him. "Do you have family?" she asked one night, her voice barely above a whisper. Ezio was standing guard outside her door. She heard him shift. Pause. Why? "Because I'm trying to remember what it's like to have people who care." Silence. Then quietly, "I have a sister, younger, 15. "What's her name?" "Doesn't matter." "It does to me." Another pause. "Lucia." "That's a beautiful name." He didn't respond, but she heard him exhale, slow and heavy. "She's sick," he said after a long moment.
"Leukemia. Treatment's expensive. That's why I'm here."
Seraphine's chest tightened. Of course. Of course Domenico found the ones who couldn't say no. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be. I made my choice."
Did you? Or did he?
Ezio didn't answer. The next day the torture got worse. Seraphine heard it all. The electric shocks, the waterboarding, the breaking of bones. Domenico wasn't just torturing men anymore. He was making art out of their suffering. And he was making sure she heard every second of it. Ezio was ordered to participate. She heard his voice, strained, desperate. "Please, boss, I can't."
"You can, and you will."
The sound of a drill. Screaming. Ezio gagging. When he came back to her door that night, his hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold his gun. Seraphine looked at him through the crack in the door. His face was pale. His eyes were hollow. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He didn't look at her.
"Don't."
"You didn't want to."
"Doesn't matter. I did it."
"He's making you into a monster, just like him."
"Maybe I already was."
"No." Her voice was firm. "You're not. I can see it." He finally looked at her. His eyes were wet.
"What do you want from me?"
"I want you to help me." He laughed. Bitter. Broken. "You're insane." "I'm desperate. There's a difference." "He'll kill me. He'll kill my sister." "He's going to kill you anyway," she said quietly. The moment you're not useful. That's how men like him work. Ezio stared at her. She could see the war in his eyes. Fear, anger, guilt. I can't, he whispered. You can. You just have to choose. He turned away, but he didn't leave. The next night, Seraphine tried to escape. Ezio had loosened her chains. Just a little. Just enough. She had waited until the guards changed shifts, then twisted her wrists, ignoring the pain, ignoring the blood, until one hand slipped free. She moved fast, unlocked the other cuff, stood. Her legs nearly gave out. 6 months pregnant, weak, starving, but she forced herself forward. She made it to the door, cracked it open. The hallway was dark. She stepped out and ran straight into a guard. Not Ezio. The guard grabbed her, shouting. Alarms blared. Footsteps pounded. Hands dragged her back, rough and cruel, slamming her against the wall. Domenico appeared. His face was calm, but his eyes were fire. Who helped you? No one. He backhanded her. Her head snapped to the side. Blood filled her mouth. Who helped you? She didn't answer. He looked at the guards. Bring me Ezio. No. They dragged him in. Ezio's eyes went wide when he saw her, saw the blood on her face, saw the chains back on her wrists. Did you help her? Domenico asked. No, boss. I swear. Domenico pulled out a gun, pressed it against Ezio's head. Please, Seraphine screamed. He didn't do anything. It was me. Just me. Domenico looked at her, then at Ezio, then back at her. Liar. He pulled the trigger. The shot echoed. But Ezio didn't fall. The gun had clicked. Empty. Domenico smiled. Cold. Cruel. Next time, it won't be. He shoved Ezio to the ground, then walked to Seraphine. He grabbed her face, forcing her to look at him. You try that again, he whispered, and I'll make you watch while I cut the baby out of you myself. He let her go, and walked away. Seraphine collapsed to the floor, shaking, sobbing. And across the room, Ezio stared at her. His fear was gone. Now there was only rage. The pain started 3 days later. Seraphine woke in the dark, her body drenched in sweat, her stomach cramping so hard she couldn't breathe. At first, she thought it was just hunger, dehydration, the stress. But then the pain came again, sharper this time, wrapping around her belly like a vice. No, not yet. It was too early. She was only 6 months. The baby wasn't ready. She wasn't ready. Another cramp tore through her and she gasped, curling onto her side. The chains rattled, her hands pressed against her belly, feeling it harden beneath her palms. No, she whispered. Please, not yet. The baby kicked, frantic, desperate. The door opened. Ezio stepped in and his eyes went wide when he saw her. What's wrong? I don't know. I think... Another contraction hit and she cried out. Ezio rushed to her side, his hands hovering, unsure. Is it the baby? I don't know. He looked toward the hallway, panicked. I need to get the boss. No. She grabbed his arm, her grip weak but desperate. Please, don't. Not him. You need a doctor? I need to get out of here. Ezio stared at her. She could see the fear in his eyes, the doubt, but something else too. Something that hadn't been there before. Rage. He had watched her bleed, watched her starve, watched Domenico torture men in her name and threaten to cut her baby out. And last night, he had felt a gun pressed to his own head. He was done. Can you walk? He asked quietly. I don't know. Try. He unlocked her chains, his hands shaking. The metal fell away, and she gasped at the relief, even as her body screamed in pain. He pulled her to her feet. Her legs buckled, but he caught her, wrapping her arm around his shoulders. Listen to me, he whispered.
There's a service door on the east side. It leads to the docks. If we move fast, they'll kill you. I know. Your sister? I'll get her out. After. I promise. Another contraction hit, and Seraphine doubled over, biting back a scream. Blood trickled down her legs. Not much, but enough. Ezio's face went pale. We need to move. Now. They stepped into the hallway. It was late. Most of the guards were on the other side of the warehouse, watching another round of torture. The screams echoed through the walls, covering the sound of their footsteps. Ezio led her through the darkness, moving slow, careful. Every few feet, Seraphine had to stop, breathe through the pain, wait for the contraction to pass. Her vision blurred, her legs shook. Almost there, Ezio whispered. They turned a corner and ran straight into a guard. The man's eyes went wide. His hand reached for his radio. Ezio moved faster. He slammed the guard into the wall, one hand over his mouth, the other reaching for the knife at his belt. The guard struggled, but Ezio was stronger, desperate. The knife went in. Once, twice. The guard went limp. Ezio let him drop, his hands covered in blood, his breath ragged. Seraphine stared at him, at the body on the floor, at the blood pooling beneath it. I'm sorry, Ezio whispered. I'm so sorry. Don't be. Her voice was shaking. Just get me out. They kept moving. The service door was just ahead. Ezio reached for the handle. Alarms blared. Lights flooded the hallway. Footsteps, shouting, guns cocking. Go! Ezio shoved her toward the door. Run! I can't leave you. Go! He turned, pulling his gun, firing at the shadows rushing toward them. Seraphine pushed through the door, stumbling into the cold night air. The docks stretched out before her, dark and empty. She could hear the water, smell the salt. Freedom was so close. But behind her, the gunfire stopped, and she heard Domenico's voice. Bring him to me, alive. She heard Ezio scream. Her legs gave out. She collapsed onto the concrete, her hands clawing at the ground, trying to pull herself forward. But the pain was too much. The contractions were coming faster now, harder, blood soaked through her clothes. The baby was coming, and she was alone. Footsteps behind her, slow, deliberate. She looked back. Domenico stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the warehouse lights. In one hand, he held a gun. In the other, he dragged Ezio by the collar. Ezio's face was beaten, bloody, but his eyes were still on her. Run, he mouthed. Domenico raised the gun. No! Seraphine screamed. The shot echoed across the docks. Ezio fell. Domenico dropped him like trash and walked toward her, his shoes clicking on the wet concrete. He crouched beside her, his hand brushing her sweat-soaked hair back from her face. You keep trying to leave me, he said softly, and people keep dying because of it. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The pain was too much. He looked down at the blood between her legs. His jaw tightened. Is it time? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. He scooped her up, carrying her back toward the warehouse. No, she gasped. Please, a hospital. Please. No hospitals. Too many questions. The baby. I have a doctor. He'll take care of you. Domenico, please. He looked down at her, and for a moment his expression softened. I told you, Seraphine. You're not leaving. Not now. Not ever. He carried her inside, and the door slammed shut behind them. The doctor was old. His hands shook as he laid out his tools on a rusted metal table. He didn't ask questions. Men like him never did. They were paid to fix problems, not create new ones. Seraphine was on a table in the center of the warehouse, under flickering lights, surrounded by blood-stained walls. This wasn't a hospital. This wasn't safe. This was a slaughterhouse. Another contraction tore through her, and she screamed, You need to push, the doctor said, his voice flat. It's too early, she gasped. The baby? If you don't push, you'll both die. Domenico stood in the corner, watching. His arms were crossed. His face was unreadable, but his eyes never left her. Push, the doctor said again. She did. The pain was blinding, white hot. Her body felt like it was tearing apart from the inside. She screamed until her throat was raw, until there was nothing left but the pain and the sound of her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Again. She pushed. And then, finally, she heard it. A cry, weak, small, but alive. The doctor lifted the baby, and Seraphine's vision blurred with tears. It was a girl. Tiny. Fragile. Covered in blood and vernix, her little fists curled tight. She's early, the doctor said. She needs a hospital. A NICU. No hospitals, Domenico said. She'll die. Then keep her alive. The doctor's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He wrapped the baby in a thin blanket and placed her on Seraphine's chest. Seraphine's arms wrapped around her daughter, trembling, protective. The baby's skin was warm against hers. Her tiny breaths were fast, uneven. Please, Seraphine whispered, looking up at Domenico. Please, she needs help. Real help. Domenico stepped forward. He looked down at the baby, at her tiny face, her closed eyes. Something shifted in his expression. Pain, longing, regret. He reached out, his finger brushing the baby's cheek. She's perfect, he whispered. She's dying. His jaw clenched. For a moment, Seraphine thought he might finally show mercy. Finally let them go, but then, his eyes hardened again. She'll survive. You both will. Domenico, that's final. He turned and walked toward the door, and that's when the explosion hit. The warehouse shook. The lights went out. Alarms blared. Shouting. Gunfire. Chaos. Seraphine pulled the baby close, shielding her with her body. The doctor ducked under the table. Domenico spun around, pulling his gun. What the hell? The door burst open. Men poured in. Not Domenico's men. Others. Rival gang. Seraphine recognized the tattoos. The colors. They had found the warehouse, and they were here to burn it down. Gunfire erupted. Domenico fired back, moving fast, shouting orders. But there were too many. His men were falling, bleeding, dying. Seraphine forced herself to move. Her body screamed in protest, but she didn't stop. She wrapped the baby tighter in the blanket, then rolled off the table, crawling toward the shadows. She had to get out. She had to save her daughter. Smoke filled the air. Flames licked the walls. The warehouse was burning. She stumbled to her feet, her legs shaking, her vision swimming. The baby cried in her arms, weak and desperate. It's okay, she whispered. It's okay, baby. I've got you. She moved through the chaos, past bodies, past fire, past the screaming. And then she saw him. Domenico. Fighting 3 men at once, blood on his face, his suit torn, but still standing, still fighting. He looked up, saw her. Their eyes met across the flames. For a second, time stopped. She saw the man she had once loved, the man who had smiled at her on that rooftop 5 years ago, the man who had held her like she was the only thing that mattered. But she also saw the monster, the man who had tortured innocent people, the man who had chained her, starved her, threatened to cut her baby out. Run, he mouthed. And then he turned back to the fight. Seraphine ran. She stumbled through the smoke, through the fire, toward the service door. Her lungs burned. Her legs gave out twice, but she forced herself up, clutching her daughter close. The door was just ahead. She reached for the handle. A hand grabbed her shoulder. She screamed, spinning around. It was one of Domenico's guards, the one who had beaten Ezio. His face was burned,
His eyes were wild.
"You're not going anywhere,"
He snarled. He raised his gun. The baby cried, and something inside Seraphine snapped. She didn't think. She just moved. Her hand shot out, grabbing a shard of broken glass from the floor. She drove it into his throat. Blood sprayed. The guard stumbled back, choking, clawing at his neck. Seraphine didn't wait. She pushed through the door and ran. The dock stretched out before her. Cold, dark, empty. Behind her, the warehouse exploded. The shockwave threw her forward. She hit the ground hard, her body curling around her daughter, protecting her from the impact. For a moment, she couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then the baby cried again, and Seraphine forced herself up. She ran, away from fire, away from the blood, away from Domenico. She didn't stop until she reached the water's edge. A boat, small, old, but it floated. She climbed in, her hands shaking, her body screaming. She laid the baby down, wrapping her in her own jacket. And then she started the engine. The boat pulled away from the docks, away from the flames, away from the nightmare. Seraphine looked back one last time. The warehouse was gone. Nothing but fire and smoke. And somewhere in that fire, Domenico was either dead or alive. She didn't know which. She didn't care. She had her daughter, and for the first time in 6 months, she was free. 3 weeks later, Seraphine sat in a small clinic on the outskirts of the city, holding her daughter. The baby was stronger now, still small, still fragile, but alive, breathing, fighting. The doctors had asked questions. Seraphine had lied, told them she had been in an accident, that she didn't remember much. They didn't believe her, but they didn't push. She named her daughter Elowen, a name that meant light, hope, because that's what she was. Every night, Seraphine woke in a cold sweat, expecting to see Domenico standing in the doorway, expecting to hear his voice, feel his hand on her belly. But he never came. The news reported the warehouse fire. 12 bodies found, most burned beyond recognition. No mention of Domenico Varro. He was either dead or hiding. Seraphine didn't know which scared her more. She had found a small apartment, paid cash, no questions. She kept the curtains closed, kept the doors locked, kept Elowen close. She had survived, but the guilt hadn't left. She thought about Ezio every day. His face, his sacrifice, the way he had mouthed "run" even as Domenico's bullet tore through him. She thought about the 12 men who had died, the cab driver, the fruit vendor, the neighbor, all of them tortured because of her. She would carry their names with her forever. One night, as she rocked Elowen to sleep, there was a knock on the door. Seraphine froze. Her heart pounded. Her breath caught. She set Elowen down gently in her crib, then moved to the door, her hand trembling as she reached for the lock. "Who is it?" Silence. Then a voice, quiet, broken. "It's me." Her blood turned to ice. She knew that voice. She opened the door, and there he was, Domenico, but not the man she remembered. He was burned, scarred. Half his face was wrapped in bandages. His suit was gone, replaced by torn clothes and dried blood. He leaned heavily against the doorframe, his breath ragged. "Seraphine," he whispered. She should have slammed the door, should have screamed, should have run, but she didn't. She just stared. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said quietly. "Why are you here?" He looked past her, into the apartment. His eyes found the crib, found Elowen. "I wanted to see her, one time. That's all." "No. Please. You don't get to do this. You don't get to show up and—" "I know." His voice cracked. "I know what I did. I know what I am." Tears burned in her eyes. "Then why are you here?" "Because I need to know she's safe. That you're both safe. We're not your problem anymore. You were never a problem, Seraphine. You were everything. She shook her head, her chest tight. You tortured people. You chained me. You threatened to cut my baby out. I know. His voice broke, and for the first time she saw tears in his eyes. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life regretting it. But I need you to know, she's safe now. I made sure of it. What do you mean? The men who were hunting you, the rival families, the ones who wanted you dead. He paused. They're gone. All of them. Her stomach dropped. What did you do? What I had to. Domenico, they'll never touch you. Or her. I made sure of it. He reached into his pocket, and Seraphine flinched, but he only pulled out an envelope. This is everything you need. New identity, bank account, enough money to disappear, to start over. He held it out. She didn't take it. Why? She whispered. Because I loved you, and I failed you. He looked at the crib again, at Elowen. But I won't fail her. She's not yours. I know. His eyes met hers. But I wish she was. He set the envelope on the doorstep. Then he turned to leave. Domenico. He stopped. If I ever see you again, she said quietly, I'll kill you. He looked back at her, and for the first time he smiled. Sad, broken. I know. And then he was gone. Seraphine stood in the doorway for a long time, staring at the empty hallway. Then she picked up the envelope, closed the door, locked it. She walked to the crib, looking down at Elowen. Her daughter's tiny chest rose and fell, peaceful, safe. Seraphine touched her cheek, her voice barely a whisper. We're free now. I promise. We're finally free. Outside, the city hummed, and somewhere in the shadows, Domenico Varro disappeared into the night, never to be seen again. What did you think of this ending? Should Seraphine have forgiven him, or was she right to send him away? Drop your thoughts below and subscribe for more heart-stopping mafia romance stories. Your girl has so many more coming your way. See you in the next one, family.